2 years ago, led by, it wasn't me. I mean, I had stood up in our conference in November 2 years ago and nominated Louie Gohmert, even though I knew he didn't have a second, but I thought, you know, at least this will give me a chance to use 3.5 minutes to explain failed leadership going back to January of 2006, when we first elected our current speaker as our leader. And so I did that, and then some of the guys that were elected in the class of November 2010 said, hey, we've got a group of us that are going to vote for somebody besides our current speaker in January. What is your intent? And I said, well, whether you do or not, I can't vote for him. So anyway, it went along, and we kept running into a problem because people would say, look, you know, I'm in a tough district. I need the money that he can raise for me. And if I make him mad, I don't get the committee that I want, or have no chance at the chairmanship. So unless there's an announced candidate, then I can't vote for anybody but the current speaker. And that's what we kept running into. Well, we thought that after the problems we'd run into the last 2 years, that it might be that we'd have a lot more folks on board this time. But as some of us talked to different members about trying to elect somebody else, we kept running into that same problem. And Thomas Massey said it's like this: members know that their constituents don't want them voting for the current speaker, but 2 years ago they were able to say, gee, I would have voted for somebody else, but there was no announced candidate. And so, you know, if there's no announced candidate, why throw my vote away? And that way they get to vote for the current speaker, and they get to have an excuse to tell their constituents. So Thomas Massey and Jim Bridenstine called Friday night for the election, and they said, it's not working again. People are using the same excuse that nobody has announced. And Thomas Massey said, yeah, and Jim Bridenstine had a brilliant idea. And Jim said, well, I want to hear that again. A guy from MIT saying that guy from Oklahoma had a brilliant idea. But anyway, Thomas said, we need you to announce that you are a candidate. And I said, guys, do you not understand what will happen if I did that? The election would not be about failed leadership. It would be about this crazy guy from Texas. And, you know, not only would the establishment all come after me and make the race all about me, they would have behind the scenes probably a lot of help from President Obama and his minions, just like he did to get the omnibus passed. And they said, yeah, but you're the only one that could go out and get enough publicity to make it into a real race. And I said, well, we got a conference call in the morning with some other guys. Let me think about it. And, you know, I do pray about big decisions. And the next morning, other guys were saying the same thing. That's a great idea. And I said, guys, then it becomes about me instead of being about problems with leadership. And that fails. That doesn't work. And there was continued push. And I said, I tell you what, if someone else were to announce before I did, then that makes it clear it's not about me. It's not about the person who announces today, Saturday, or somebody announces later. It's about the current leadership. I knew if I announced that it would ensure that I would not be elected speaker, because it would make so many people in the House upset. But Ted Yoho said, well, I'll announce today if that'll get you to announce tomorrow. And I said, well, if he said, you know, not enough people know him. I think more people know Ted Yoho now, don't y'all? Yeah, he's a good man. And as a veterinarian, he's worked with both ends of the horse before. how to work in Washington. He's got that experience. So anyway, and we had heard that Dan Webster would probably announce on Monday, and it ended up being Tuesday morning. But Ted announced on Saturday, and we called Fox News, and they said, sure, come on. And then that started it. But I felt a little like, well, I'll just give you this example. There was a guy that had bred the meanest, biggest, ferocious dog anybody had ever heard of, anybody had ever seen. And he just had an ongoing challenge. Anybody want to challenge my dog, put up $1,000 and you'll get 10 if your dog wins. And so he just knew nobody could beat his dog. And he let him run around in the front yard. One day a little old lady came up to the door and knocked, and he opened the door and said, where'd you come from? I said, well, I just came across your yard. And she said, I'm so sorry to tell you, but I think my dog killed your dog. And he said, that's impossible. She said, no, I'm sorry, but it happened. He said, what kind of dog have you got? And she said, a Pekingese. And he said, there is no way in the world a Pekingese killed my dog. Wow. And she said, well, I'm really sorry, but it did happen. And he said, well, how could your dog have killed my dog? And she said, he got stuck in his throat. So, you know, sometimes you have to have that sacrifice, you know, to take out the big dog. I mean, you know. So I was going to be the Pekingese. But it was an amazing weekend, and I had one member tell me that she said, we have made sure, but every one of the calls we've gotten were from constituents, my actual constituents. And this member said, we've had over 1,000, and every single one of them asked me to vote for you for speaker. And I said, wow. And this member said, yeah, and not a single one asked me to vote for Boehner. Wow. And I said, so what are you going to do? She said, oh, well, I got to vote for Boehner, but I just thought you'd like to know.
You'll feel good.
And I had